The soft hum of the chronosynths was Ilara's lullaby, a constant, gentle thrumming that resonated through the crystalline floors of Avum Nexus. Outside her panoramic window, the swirling, polychromatic storms of the gas giant Chronos painted an ever-shifting masterpiece. Deep reds bled into iridescent blues, streaked with veins of emerald green, all held captive beneath a sky that was not sky, but the endless churning atmosphere of a world that had no surface. Avum Nexus, the great temporal observatory and city station, floated here, a jewel of chrome and light suspended in the tempestuous beauty. Ilara traced a finger over the cool, smooth plasteel of her windowsill. She wasn't sleepy, not yet. Her mind, as usual, was a kaleidoscope of questions, each one shimmering like the nebulae projected onto her bedroom ceiling. She liked the quiet of the night cycle, when the bustling corridors outside her suite grew still, and the distant murmur of the temporal weavers in the central chronarium faded to a whisper. It was then that the city felt most alive, breathing with its own unique temporal pulse. Her room was a sanctuary of soft light and curious objects. A miniature, glowing nebula spun in a jar on her bedside table, its tiny stars winking. A stack of ancient physical books, real paper, Nana Rhea called them, lay beside it, filled with stories of worlds long gone or yet to be discovered. But tonight, her gaze was drawn not to the familiar wonders, but to a small nondescript box tucked away on a shelf. It was made of dull, grey composite, featureless, save for a single tarnished brass latch. She knew what was inside, or at least, she thought she did. Nana Rhea had given it to her on her 10th birthday, a year ago. A memory box, little star, her grandmother had said, her voice a warm embrace. To keep your most precious moments safe, for when you need to remember who you are, and who you're becoming. Ilara had filled it with the usual treasures, a perfectly smooth pebble she'd found on a rare excursion to a terraformed moon, a faded drawing of a star whale, a data shard containing a holovid of her first zero-G ballet performance. But lately, something felt different about it. She slid off her bed, her bare feet silent on the floor. The air in Avum Nexus was always perfectly conditioned, smelling faintly of ozone and recycled oxygen, a scent she found comforting. She reached for the box, her fingers brushing against its cool surface. The brass latch felt warmer than usual, almost alive. With a soft click, it opened. Inside, nestled amongst the familiar trinkets, was something new. Something she hadn't put there. It was a shard, no bigger than her thumbnail, exquisitely faceted like a cut gem. But its brilliance wasn't from reflected light, it seemed to hold light within it. And the light wasn't static. It pulsed, a tiny, rhythmic beat, shifting through colors Ilara had never seen before, not the primary spectrum, nor even the complex hues of chronostorms, but shades that seemed to exist between colors, or perhaps even beyond them. As she picked it up, a peculiar sensation rippled through her. It wasn't cold or hot, but felt janscienta. And then, the strangest thing happened. A whisper, faint and fleeting, brushed against her mind. It wasn't words, but a sensation, like the echo of a forgotten melody, or the scent of rain on a desert planet. A pang of longing, sharp and exquisite, tightened her chest. "What are you?" she murmured, turning the shard over in her fingers. The light inside it pulsed faster, as if responding to her voice. This wasn't a ChronoFract. Those were vast, cataclysmic tears in the temporal fabric, dangerous and beautiful, where moments from different eras collided and bled together. They were usually contained by the powerful chronosynths of Avum Nexus, studied from afar, their temporal echoes monitored. Nana Rhea, a senior temporal weaver, had told her stories of them, hushed tales of impossible vistas, ancient forests growing in the heart of a future cityscape, or the silent, ghostly ships of a forgotten civilization sailing across the future sky. But they were always immense, distant. This was small, intimate. And it was in her memory box. Ilara knew she shouldn't touch unknown temporal artifacts. That was rule number 1 for anyone living in Avum Nexus. But the shard felt safe. Familiar, almost. As if it had always been waiting for her. She held it up, letting the faint, unearthly glow illuminate her face. In its depths, she thought she saw movement. Not a reflection of her room, but something else. A fleeting image, like a photograph taken through rippling water, a vast, empty space, filled with stars, and at its heart, a single impossibly bright point of light. Then it was gone, replaced by the internal pulsing colors. Her gaze drifted to the ancient books beside her bed. Nanaria had taught her to read them, to appreciate the tactile sensation of paper, the smell of aged ink. One of them, a heavy tome bound in worn leather, was titled Etheric Anomalies, a compendium of the unexplainable. Elara remembered seeing Nanaria consult it sometimes, her brow furrowed in concentration. With the shard still clutched in her hand, Elara carefully pulled the book from the shelf. Its pages rustled like dry leaves as she opened it. The index was dense, filled with terms like temporal eddy, chronal mirage, and fracture echo. Her finger hovered over the last one. Fracture echo, don't do. Could this be it? She flipped to the specified page. The text was complex, filled with diagrams and equations she didn't fully understand. But there was a description that caught her eye. Fracture echoes, or chronogems, rare stable fragments of larger temporal fractures, often appearing as highly resonant crystalline structures. They retain a residual temporal signature of their origin point, sometimes manifesting as sensory echoes, faint sounds, smells or visual distortions. While generally harmless in isolation, prolonged exposure can induce mild temporal disorientation, or temporal build. Elara read the last sentence again. Temporal bleeding. Memories or perceptions from other timelines. Oh? The whisper she had felt, the pang of longing, could it have been a memory that wasn't hers? She looked at the shard again. It pulsed, brighter now, the colors inside swirling like miniature galaxies. She felt a strange pull, a sense of familiarity with the unknown. This wasn't just a pretty rock, it was a key perhaps to a secret. Nana Rhea. Her grandmother would know. But Nana Rhea was often busy in the central chronarium, especially during the night cycle. She was a guardian of Avum Nexus, a protector of the delicate balance of time. Elara knew her grandmother wouldn't appreciate her handling an unclassified temporal artifact, especially one she'd found in her own memory box. Nana Rhea was fiercely protective, a trait born from years of safeguarding Avum Nexus from the dangers of ChronoFract. But Nana Rhea had also taught her to be curious, to question, to seek understanding. The universe is a vast library, little star, she'd often say, her eyes twinkling. And every question is a new shelf to explore. Elara decided she would explore, quietly, for now. She carefully placed the chronogem back into her memory box, closing the lid with a soft click. The hum of the chronosynth seemed to deepen, as if the city itself was acknowledging her secret. She lay back on her bed, pulling her synth silk blanket up to her chin. The nebula on her ceiling swirled, its gentle lights reflecting in her wide, curious eyes. Sleep didn't come easily. Her mind replayed the strange sensation of the shard, the fleeting image she thought she'd seen. She imagined the vast emptiness of space, that impossibly bright point of light. What was it? And why did it feel so important? As the hours passed, and the storms of Chronos continued their silent dance outside, Elara drifted into a fitful slumber. Her dreams were vivid, more real than usual. She wasn't in her room, or even in Avum Nexus. She was in the vast, star-strewn void she had glimpsed in the chronogem. She felt weightless, adrift, yet not afraid. Around her, stars glittered like scattered diamonds. But there was something else. Streaks of light, like luminous ribbons, wove through the darkness, coalescing and then dissolving, each one a different hue, a different energy. They were like pathways, or perhaps echoes of pathways. And then, she saw it again. The impossibly bright point of light. It wasn't a star, not truly. It was a nexus, a confluence of those luminous ribbons, pulsing with a raw, untamed energy. It hummed, a sound that resonated not in her ears, but in her very bones. A voice, not a real voice, but a presence, filled her dream. It wasn't Nana Rhea's, nor anyone she knew. It was ancient, vast, yet strangely comforting. Seek the source, little weaver. The threads are fraying, the ChronoFract deepens. Ilara reached out, drawn by an irresistible force. As her dream hand neared the bright nexus, the ribbons of light swirled faster, converging. She felt a jolt, a surge of energy that was both exhilarating and terrifying. It was a sensation of being everywhere and nowhere, of existing in multiple moments at once. She saw fleeting images, a laughing child with eyes like hers but older, a ship, sleek and silver, streaking through a wormhole, a city, unlike Avum Nexus, built into the side of a colossal asteroid, its windows glowing like fireflies. The images flashed by, too fast to grasp, but each left a faint emotional residue. Joy, fear, a profound sense of purpose. Then, with another jolt, she was back in her bedroom. The nebula on her ceiling still swirled, the chronosynths still hummed. The faint light of dawn was beginning to paint the edges of Cronus's storms in soft pastels. She sat bolt upright, heart pounding. It had been a dream, yes, but it felt different. More than a dream. A memory, perhaps, from one of those other timelines? A temporal bleed, just as the book had described. She looked at her memory box, still closed, still unassuming. But she knew. The chronogem was more than just a fragment. It was a beacon. The morning cycle began with the cheerful chime of her wake-up program. Ilara went through her usual routine, a quick rehydrating nutrient paste, a check of the daily news feeds, mostly updates on stellar drift patterns and new exoplanet discoveries, and then her self-study modules for temporal physics, her favorite subject. But her mind was elsewhere, replaying the dream, the voice, the bright nexus. Later that morning, as Nanarea prepared to leave for the chronarium, Ilara found her in the small communal kitchen. Her grandmother was a striking figure, even in her casual morning attire. Her silver hair was usually pulled back in a severe bun, but now it was loose, framing a face lined with wisdom and kindness. Her eyes, the same warm hazel as Ilara's, held a depth that spoke of countless temporal calculations and difficult decisions. "Good morning, little star," Nanarea said, her voice a gentle melody. She poured herself a cup of steaming synth brew. "Sleep well." Ilara hesitated. Should she tell her about the chronogem? About the dream? A part of her yearned to share it, to seek her grandmother's vast knowledge. But another part, the part that had felt that strange, ancient pull, urged caution. This felt like her secret, a discovery only she could understand. "I had a strange dream," Ilara admitted, opting for a partial truth. "About stars and light." Nanarea paused, her hand halfway to her lips. She turned, her gaze sharp, penetrating. "Light?" she asked, her tone suddenly serious. "What kind of light?" Ilara felt a flush spread across her cheeks. "A very bright light," she mumbled. "Like a star, but bigger. And ribbons of light, weaving around it." Nanarea's expression softened, but a flicker of concern remained in her eyes. "A grand dream then," she said, though her voice seemed to hold a hidden layer of meaning. "Sometimes our minds wander to the deepest parts of the universe when we sleep, Ilara. There's much beauty to be found there." She didn't press further, which was unusual. Nanarea was usually keen to dissect Ilara's dreams, believing they often held clues to her subconscious connection to the temporal energies that permeated Avum Nexus. This time, she simply offered a reassuring smile. "I must go now, little star. The chronarium calls. A new temporal anomaly has been detected near the outer reaches. Nothing to worry about, just routine stabilization. I may be late tonight." "Be safe, Nana," Ilara said, embracing her grandmother tightly. She breathed in the familiar scent of ozone and something else, something distinctly Nanarea, a faint metallic tang that Ilara associated with the temporal weaver's advanced suits. As Nanarea left, the door sealing with a soft hiss, Ilara felt a renewed urgency. Her grandmother's reaction, the slight shift in her demeanor, confirmed it. The dream, the chronogem. It wasn't just a figment of her imagination. She spent the rest of the day in a haze, her concentration on her study modules non-existent. She kept rereading the passage about fracture echoes, her mind racing. Prolonged exposure can induce mild temporal disorientation, or temporal bleed, where memories or perceptions from other timelines may briefly intrude upon the conscious mind. Xian. What if her dream wasn't just a dream, but a temporal bleed? What if the voice, the images, were memories from another timeline, another galaxy? The thought was both thrilling and unsettling. That evening, as the polychromatic storms of Chronos began their nightly ballet, Alara decided she couldn't wait for Nana Rhea. She had to understand. She retrieved the chronogem from her memory box. This time, as she held it, the subtle hum of the chronosynths in her room seemed to synchronize with the pulse of the gem. The air around her shimmered, not visibly, but in the way a heat haze distorts vision. Only this distortion was felt, not seen. She closed her eyes, focusing on the gem, allowing its faint, otherworldly light to permeate her senses. She thought of the dream, of the vast, star-strewn void, of the bright nexus. She willed herself back there, not to sleep, but to remember. At first, nothing. Just the feel of the gem, the hum of the city. Then, slowly, the shimmering intensified. The air grew thick, heavy with unspoken moments. She felt a familiar pull, a gentle tugging at the edges of her perception. And then, she was there. Not physically, but her mind was. She was in the void again, surrounded by the luminous ribbons of light. The bright nexus pulsed before her, closer now, its energy more palpable. This time she didn't just observe. She felt a connection, as if a part of her was woven into those very ribbons. The voice returned, clearer now, though still without discernible words. It was a symphony of emotions, a cascade of knowledge, a plea. The ChronoFract. Alara didn't understand. Great ChronoFract? Nana Rhea had only spoken of localized anomalies, contained and managed. This sounded catastrophic. As she focused on the bright nexus, the ribbons of light began to coalesce, forming images. Not fleeting glimpses but sustained visions, like holovids playing out around her in the void. She saw herself, or an older version of herself, standing before a vast control panel, her hands moving with practiced grace over intricate temporal interfaces. Her face was grim, determined, her eyes reflecting the same bright nexus that now shimmered before Alara. Then, the scene shifted. She saw Nana Rhea, much younger, her face etched with a desperate sadness. She was holding a tiny glowing object, strikingly similar to the chronogem in Alara's hand, but larger, pulsating with a more intense light. She was weeping, her tears reflecting the object's glow. Around her, the asteroid city Alara had glimpsed earlier was in chaos, alarms blaring, structures collapsing. The sacrifice, the sealing. It was not enough. The voice in her mind resonated with profound sorrow. The fracture spreads, the timelines bleed, you must find the others, the chronoguardians, they must awaken. The image of young Nana Rhea faded, replaced by another, a swirling vortex of temporal energy tearing through the fabric of space. It was immense, terrifying, consuming stars, planets, entire galaxies. It was the great ChronoFract, and it was beautiful in its destructive power. Alara gasped, her eyes snapping open. She was back in her room, the chronogem still clutched in her hand, its light now dim and almost imperceptible. The air was still, the hum of the chronosynth steady. But the calm was a lie. Her heart hammered against her ribs, echoing the rhythm of the destructive vortex she had seen. She looked at her memory box, then at the ancient book. Eteric anomalies, dos. Jai, great, chronofracton, do. It wasn't just a theoretical concept or a distant threat. It was real. And it was growing. And Nana Rhea, her brave, wise Nana Rhea, had been involved. The young Nana Rhea, weeping in the collapsing asteroid city, holding a larger, more powerful chrono-gem. A sacrifice, the voice had said. A sealing. What had her grandmother done? And what did it mean that it was not enough? Alara knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that her life in Avum Nexus, a life of quiet study and gentle wonder, was about to change. The chronogem was not just a memory, but a key to a much larger and far more dangerous truth. A truth about her grandmother, about Avum Nexus, and perhaps about herself. The voice had called her Little Weaver. It had said the ChronoFract deepens, the timelines unravel. And that shame was the Nexus. She looked down at the chronogem, now glowing faintly again, as if in response to her thoughts. It pulsed, a silent invitation, a call to a journey she was just beginning to comprehend. The quiet hum of Avum Nexus felt different now, no longer a lullaby, but a prelude. The stars outside her window, usually a source of comfort, now seemed to hold untold secrets waiting to be revealed. And Elara, the curious girl who loved ancient books and whispered questions, knew she had to find the answers. And Elara, the curious girl who loved ancient books and whispered questions, knew she had to find the answers. She reached out, her fingers tracing the smooth, cool surface of the chronogem. As her skin brushed against it, the faint glow intensified, pulsating with a gentle rhythm, like a heart beating softly in the palm of her hand. A warmth spread from the gem, up her arm, and settled in her chest, a comforting tingle that banished any lingering doubt. Suddenly, the air in her room shimmered. Not a physical change, but a subtle ripple, as if the very fabric of reality had thinned. From the chronogem, a beam of soft opalescent light extended, not into the room, but free through it, connecting to a point in the empty space before her. There, a holographic interface bloomed into existence, delicate and intricate, woven from threads of pure light. It wasn't a screen she could touch, but rather a mental projection, a symphony of symbols and images that resonated directly with her thoughts. She saw swirling nebulae, intricate temporal pathways, and vast stardusted libraries stretching further than her mind could grasp. The interface was a map, a key, and a guide all at once. Avum Nexus, a soft melodious voice whispered, not from the room but from within her mind, as if the Nexus itself was speaking to her. "Welcome, Elara, the chronogem has chosen you." Elara gasped, her heart doing a little flutter kick of excitement. The voice was gentle, reassuring, yet held an ancient wisdom. "Chosen me," she whispered aloud, her voice barely a breath. "Indeed," the voice responded, clearer now, yet still ethereal. "The chronogem is more than a relic. It is a resonance key, attuned to those who seek knowledge, those who feel the currents of time and wonder. Avum Nexus is a sanctuary, a crossroads where all moments converge, a guardian of her histories, both known and forgotten." The holographic map before her shifted, zooming in, revealing layers upon layers of impossible architecture and shimmering energy pathways. Her room, she realized, was just one small quiet node in an infinitely vast network. A network that wasn't just in space, but off time itself. "The stars outside your window," the voice continued. "They are not merely distant suns, but gateways. And the ancient books you cherish are fragments, echoes of grander narratives." Elara's eyes darted across the holographic display. She saw labels in a language she instinctively understood, though she'd never learned it: Coenospium, Gatherium Gardens, Nebula Archives, Whispering Hall Scene. Her gaze lingered on Nebula Archives. A library woven from starlight? The thought sent a thrill through her. I want to understand," Elara said, her voice filled with a newfound determination. "I want to find the answers to the questions no one else asks, the stories lost to the silence." "The silence," the voice echoed, a faint note of melancholy entering its tone. "Yes, there are many silences, Elara, gaps in the tapestry of time, moments obscured or erased. Your chronogem can help you navigate these lost threads. Where would you begin your quest for understanding?" A new set of options materialized on the holographic interface, swirling like cosmic dust. The Great Library of Lumina, the Echoing Scriptorium, the Archive of Shifting Sands. Each name conjured images of forgotten knowledge and ancient wonders. But one name in particular shimmered with a soft, inviting light, almost as if calling to her. "The Celestial Repository." "The Celestial Repository," Elara murmured, the words feeling right on her tongue. "What is it?" "It is a place where information is not merely stored, but lived," the Nexus's voice explained. "Where records manifest as shimmering forms, where starlight illuminates the deepest truths. It is a good place to begin, for it holds the foundational knowledge, the first echoes of the universe's grand narrative. Excitement bubbled within Elara. This wasn't just a dream, this was real. "How do I get there?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The chronogem pulsed again, its light expanding to form a shimmering archway directly in front of her. The archway wasn't made of solid matter, but of swirling starlight and shifting nebulae, like a window into a cosmic storm. Beyond it, she could glimpse something vast and impossibly beautiful, a cathedral of light built from pure thought. "Step through, Elara," the Nexus invited. "The chronogem will guide you. Fear not, for in Avum Nexus you are always safe, always protected by the currents of time itself." Taking a deep breath, Elara clutched the chronogem tighter. The warmth emanating from it was her anchor. She took a step, then another, passing through the shimmering archway. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It wasn't like walking through a door, or even teleporting. It was as if she was dissolving into pure light, her atoms scattering and reforming instantaneously. There was a brief, exhilarating rush, a feeling of being stretched across infinity, followed by a gentle settling. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer in her quiet room. She stood on a crystalline pathway, impossibly transparent, suspended in a vast, open space. Above her, below her, and all around her, stretched an endless expanse of swirling starlight. Not the distant pinprick she saw from her window, but vibrant, close-up nebulae in hues of sapphire, emerald and amethyst, painting the void with cosmic artistry. Giant, glowing spheres, like miniature suns, drifted silently, casting warm, shifting light on everything. This was the celestial repository. The air, if it could be called air, was cool and smelled faintly of ozone and something else. Something ancient and sweet, like crystallized memory. There was no true up or down, yet the crystalline pathway felt solid beneath her feet, leading towards colossal structures that shimmered with internal light. These structures weren't buildings in the traditional sense. They were immense organic-looking formations of light and energy, constantly shifting, breathing, expanding. "Welcome to the Celestial Repository, Elara." The Nexus's voice resonated in her mind, now sounding more expansive, as if it were truly part of this boundless space. "Here, knowledge takes form. Each shimmering sphere, each nebula, each crystalline structure you see holds a universe of information." As she walked along the pathway, she noticed smaller, translucent orbs floating gently around her. They hummed with a soft internal light. Reaching out, Elara gently touched one. As her finger brushed its surface, images flooded her mind. A bustling alien city built into the side of a gas giant, the intricate dance of binary stars, the elegant equations of a forgotten physics. It was information, pure and unadulterated, experienced not as words but as feeling, as understanding. "These are fragments, echoes of universal truths," the Nexus explained. "But for a deeper dive you will need a guide. Look ahead, Elara, towards the heart of the repository." Elara looked up. In the distance, a particularly large, luminous sphere pulsed with an inviting golden light. As she approached, it resolved into a more defined shape, becoming a central hub. From it, countless delicate tendrils of light extended, connecting to other, smaller spheres and structures, like the nervous system of a cosmic brain. As she reached the golden sphere, a figure coalesced from its shimmering light. It wasn't human, nor alien in a monstrous way. It was a being of pure, radiant energy, vaguely humanoid in form, with eyes that held the depth of galaxies. Its form was fluid, constantly shifting, like light refracting through water, but its presence was gentle and unwavering. "Greetings, Elara," the being said, its voice a harmonious blend of chimes and starlight, resonating directly in her mind, yet distinct from the Nexus's voice. "I am Lumiel, keeper of the Celestial Repository. The Nexus has informed me of your arrival, and your desire to understand the silence." Lumiel extended a hand, and Elara instinctively reached out. Their hands met, not with a physical touch, but with a surge of gentle energy that flowed between them, a silent communication. Lumiel's essence felt ancient, patient, and infinitely wise. The silence is a profound challenge, Ilara, Lumiel explained, as they began to drift slowly through the heart of the repository, the crystalline pathways guiding them. It is not merely a lack of information, but an active absence, a void where knowledge once thrived. It manifests as forgotten histories, lost technologies, and even erased civilizations. Some believe it is a natural phenomenon, a cosmic amnesia. Others believe it is engineered. Ilara's brows furrowed. Engineered? By whom? Lumiel's light flickered, a subtle shift in its luminous form. That is the central mystery, Ilara. The chronogems are artifacts designed to pierce these silences, to reawaken the lost echoes, and to guide their wielder towards the truth. Your gem, attuned to you, is one of the most potent. They stopped before an immense swirling vortex of iridescent light. Unlike the gentle nebulae, this one pulsed with a raw, almost hungry energy. This is the Great Whisper, Lumiel explained, its voice growing softer, more reverent. It is not a source of information, but a confluence of echoes, the faintest traces of what once was, before the silence took hold. It is where we begin to listen. Lumiel gestured towards the vortex. To delve into the Great Whisper, you must allow your chronogem to resonate with its energies. It will amplify the whispers, allowing you to perceive them more clearly than anyone before you. Ilara held up the chronogem. It pulsed with an eager light, as if it too understood its purpose. She closed her eyes, focusing on the gem, on the swirling energy of the Great Whisper before her. She imagined herself reaching out, connecting, allowing the ancient echoes to flow into her. At first, there was only a cacophony, a jumble of sounds, images, and feelings. A flash of a golden city, then the roar of a monstrous beast, a mournful song, a burst of laughter, the cold logic of an alien machine. It was overwhelming, like trying to listen to a million conversations at once. But then, the chronogem hummed, a deep, resonant tone that cut through the noise. It began to filter, to organize, to bring coherence to the chaos. The individual echoes separated, becoming distinct threads of information. Ilara saw a flash of a beautiful shimmering starship, unlike any she'd ever read about in her ancient books. It was sleek, organic, almost alive, woven from light and crystal. Then, the vision shifted. She saw the ship's crew, a diverse group of beings from different worlds, all working together with a shared purpose, their faces alight with a fierce, hopeful determination. They were explorers, pioneers, charting unknown sectors of the galaxy. The chronogem guided her deeper. She heard snippets of their conversations. The Lumina Project, the Great Unraveling, the Last Hope. There was a sense of urgency, of a looming threat. The images became clearer, more focused. She saw the starship, named the Star Singer, venturing into a region of space where stars themselves seemed to be fading, winking out of existence, leaving behind vast cold voids. This was the Great Unraveling. Then, a new element entered the whispers. A low, persistent hum, like a discordant note in a beautiful symphony. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew, insidious and chilling. It seemed to come from the very fabric of space, a pervasive wave of interference that slowly, inexorably, began to silence everything. The Starsinger crew tried to fight it. They deployed devices, sent out probes, analyzed the humming wave. Ilara felt their fear, their desperation, as their instruments failed, their communications cut out, and even their memories began to fray. The images became distorted, glitchy, like an old recording skipping. Faces blurred, words became garbled. The vibrant colors of the nebulae turned dull and gray. Finally, the whispers grew thin, fading into a vast, empty silence. The magnificent Star Singer was gone, its fate swallowed by the encroaching void. The golden cities, the intricate technologies, the hopeful faces, all dissolved into nothingness. This was the silence. Ilara opened her eyes, gasping for breath. The chronogem in her hand was now glowing intensely, pulsing with the energy it had absorbed. Tears pricked at her eyes, not of sadness, but of profound empathy for the lost civilization, for the brave crew of the Yin Starsinger. She had witnessed their end, their struggle against an incomprehensible force. "You've seen a fragment of the great silence," Lumiel said softly, its luminous form shimmering with understanding. "One of many. The great unraveling was an early manifestation. The humming wave, that is the signature of the silence itself." "What was it?" Elara whispered, still shaken. "What caused it?" "We do not know, Elara," Lumiel admitted, a rare note of uncertainty in its harmonious voice. "The Nexus has preserved these echoes, but the full truth remains elusive." Lumiel gestured to the chronogem. As Elara looked, the gem projected a single stable image onto the crystalline pathway before them. It was a symbol, intricate and beautiful, like a knot of shimmering light. And beneath it, a sequence of numbers and letters appearing almost like coordinates. "These are not merely echoes, Elara," Lumiel explained, "but clues. The symbol, it is the crest of the Astarsinger crew, a symbol of their unity, and the coordinates, they point to a specific nexus point, a place where the Astarsinger made its final desperate stand, a place beyond the great unraveling, where a different kind of silence reigns." Elara looked at the coordinates, a new thrill of discovery mingling with the lingering sorrow. This wasn't just about lost knowledge, it was about tracing a journey, following a path. "Does this mean there might be more?" Elara asked, her voice filled with a renewed hope. "Survivors? More answers?" Lumiel's form brightened. "It means there is a thread, Elara, a chance to follow the narrative, to understand what truly happened. The Nexus can transport you to this specific nexus point, to the edge of that profound silence. But be warned, this next journey will take you to a place where the echoes are fainter, where the silence is more complete." Elara looked from the symbol to the coordinates, then to the chronogem, still glowing in her hand. The sense of wonder was still there, but now it was tempered with a deeper purpose. She wasn't just a curious girl anymore, she was a seeker, a bridge between the whispers and the silence. "I have to go," Elara declared, her voice firm. "I have to find out what happened to the Astarsinger. I have to find the truth behind the silence." Lumiel smiled, a radiant burst of light. "Then the Nexus will prepare the way. Your journey has truly begun, Elara. You carry the light of knowledge against the encroaching dark." The celestial repository, with its endless starlight and shimmering archives, began to softly recede, blurring into a luminous tunnel around Elara. The comforting hum of Avum Nexus returned, no longer a prelude, but a steady beat, guiding her towards the next unknown. She clutched the chronogem, its warmth a constant presence, a silent promise of the adventures that lay ahead. The stars, once distant, now felt like a tapestry waiting to be unraveled, each thread a story, each void a mystery. And Elara, the girl who loved ancient books and whispered questions, was ready to read them all. The luminous tunnel around Elara shimmered, not with the chaotic swirl of an uncontrolled jump, but with the steady rhythmic pulse of an immense knowing machine. Colors she'd never seen before painted the walls of her journey, hues that felt like the echoes of distant suns and the whispers of nascent galaxies. The comforting hum of the Avum Nexus was now a lullaby, a profound vibration that resonated deep within her, aligning with the steady beat of her own heart. She clutched the chronogem, its warmth a constant, anchoring presence in the dazzling void, a silent promise of the adventures that lay ahead. The stars, once distant, now felt like a tapestry waiting to be unraveled, each thread a story, each void a mystery. And Elara, the girl who loved ancient books and whispered questions, was ready to read them all. The tunnel began to unfurl, not into an abrupt stop, but a gradual widening, like the petals of an impossibly vast, glowing flower. The hum softened, morphing into a symphony of gentle chimes and distant, melodic murmurs. Elara felt a sensation akin to floating, then a delicate deceleration, as if she were a feather settling onto a cushion of light. Her feet, still firmly planted on the Nexus Earth platform, registered a new solidity beneath them, yet the air around her felt impossibly soft, almost breathable light. When the vibrant tunnel finally dissolved, it revealed not a planetary surface or a starship's bay, but a chamber of breathtaking, ethereal beauty. It was impossibly vast, a cathedral spun from starlight and solidified thought. Towering arches, seemingly woven from strands of pure energy, stretched upwards into a ceiling that was not a ceiling at all, but a shimmering, translucent dome, revealing the slow, majestic dance of nebulae and distant galaxies. This was no ordinary space station or celestial body. It felt like a living archive, a place where the cosmos itself had come to learn. The air here carried the faint, sweet scent of ozone mixed with something else, something ancient and comforting, like old parchment and freshly unfurled leaves after a spring rain. Everywhere Elara looked, there were structures that defied conventional understanding. Not shelves of books, but glowing rivers of light that snaked and intertwined, flowing through crystalline conduits and pooling into shimmering, holographic fountains. These weren't water. They were information, narratives, entire histories made visible. She realized, with a gasp that caught in her throat, that she was standing within the Librarium Etherea, the legendary nexus of narratives, a place whispered about in ancient earth tales as the library at the end of time and space. The chronogem in her hand pulsed with a gentle golden light, mirroring the soft glow of the narrative currents around her. It felt at home here, as if it had brought her to its origin point, or perhaps to a place designed to help her understand its true purpose. Suddenly, a presence stirred nearby. From a swirling eddy of luminous data streams, a figure emerged. It was not human, nor alien in any terrifying sense. It was a being of pure, radiant energy, loosely coalesced into a form that suggested grace and wisdom. Its body shimmered with an internal light that shifted through all the colors of the spectrum, its limbs long and tapering, its head a luminous orb with no discernible features. This was a scribe of the ether, a guardian of the librarium. "Welcome, Elara of Earth," a voice chimed, not from a mouth, but seeming to resonate from the very air around her. A chorus of harmonious tones that somehow coalesced into perfect comprehension within her mind. "We have awaited your arrival." Elara, usually composed, found herself a little breathless. You knew I was coming?" The scribe drifted closer, its form rippling like a mirage. "The chronogem is a key, and keys always find their locks. Your unique frequency, amplified by its resonance, was detected across the narrative currents. You carry the spark of curiosity, the hunger for stories, which is a rare and precious thing in an age where much knowledge is simply downloaded. But why here? What do you do?" Elara gestured around the magnificent space, her gaze sweeping over the glowing rivers of information. "We are the custodians of the grand tapestry, Elara," the scribe explained, its voice a gentle hum of understanding. "Every story, every life, every moment across all realities, all times is a thread woven into existence. Here we observe, we record, and occasionally, we mend." Mend? Indeed. Sometimes, threads fray. Memories are lost, histories are fractured, futures become entangled. Our purpose is to ensure the integrity of the narrative, to preserve the balance of truth and perspective. The scribe paused, its light shimmering with a subtle shift. And sometimes, a story needs a fresh perspective, a new hand to re-illuminate its path. Elara looked down at the chronogem, which now pulsed with a more insistent beat. "Is that why I'm here? To help mend something?" "Precisely. The chronogem is not merely a device for travel. It is a resonance conduit, an amplifier of insight. It brought you to a specific anomaly, a narrative thread that is fading, threatening to unravel a crucial juncture in a distant corner of the cosmos." The scribe motioned with a luminous limb towards one of the glowing narrative currents. As it did, a section of the river of light began to swirl more intensely, coalescing into a vibrant three-dimensional projection in the air before them. Elara gasped. It was a world, rendered in exquisite detail. A planet shrouded in perpetual twilight, its surface dotted with colossal, bioluminescent flora that pulsed with soft light, illuminating cities built into the hollows of ancient, towering trees. The people were slender, graceful beings with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian, and eyes that glowed with an internal light. They seemed to move with a profound sense of harmony, their lives intertwined with the gentle rhythms of their unique ecosystem. "This is Xylos," the scribe narrated, the projection hovering before them. "A world known for its deep connection to the living consciousness of its planetary flora. They communicate through light patterns and resonant frequencies, sharing knowledge and experience directly with the Great Arbor, the central consciousness of their world tree. Their history is one of peace, sustained by mutual understanding and the sharing of collective memory through this symbiotic bond. Elara felt a pang of wonder and sadness simultaneously. "It's beautiful. What's happening to it?" The projection flickered, and a subtle distortion rippled through the image. The luminous flora seemed to dim slightly, and the graceful beings moved with a hesitant, almost fearful uncertainty. The anomaly, Elara, is a disruption in their collective memory, a crucial thread of their history, a foundational story that underpins their entire culture is fading. It's not just forgotten, it's being actively suppressed, overwritten by a void. Without this core narrative, their connection to the Great Arbor weakens, their sense of identity falters, and their future becomes uncertain. But how could a story be suppressed? Who would do that? Elara asked, her brow furrowed. Not by malice, not directly, the scribe clarified, but by a gradual, insidious neglect, compounded by a period of extreme environmental stress that forced them to focus solely on survival. In their desperation, a vital ceremony, a ritual of remembrance, was overlooked. And without its periodic retelling and re-experiencing, the story began to lose its anchor in the collective consciousness. The scribe then zoomed in on a specific detail within the projection, an ancient moss-covered monument nestled deep within the roots of one of the colossal trees. It was intricately carved with symbols that seemed to glow faintly. This is the Echo Stone. It was once the focal point of the remembrance ceremony, imbued with the resonant frequencies of their ancestral memories. It holds the core of the fading story, but its power has dwindled almost to nothing. "So you want me to reactivate it? How?" Elara felt a surge of apprehension mixed with her characteristic curiosity. This was a lot more involved than just reading a book. The chronogem holds a unique resonance with primal narratives, with moments of profound universal truth. It can act as a tuning fork. You, Elara, with your innate empathy and your love for the stories of old, are capable of discerning the true frequency of this lost narrative. You must journey to Xylos, find the Echo Stone, and use the chronogem to help re-illuminate its truth. You will need to listen to the world, to the whispers that remain, to peace Todd. Elara looked at the projection of Xylos, then at the chronogem in her hand. It felt heavier now, charged with purpose. I don't know if I can do that. I'm just a girl who reads books." "And that, Elara, is precisely why you can," the scribe replied, its luminous form seeming to expand with quiet reassurance. "Books are conduits of memory, vessels of truth." Before Elara could voice further questions, the chamber around her began to shimmer. The narrative current swirled into a vortex, not violent, but inviting. The scribe's luminous form began to recede, its voice gently fading. "The Nexus awaits your next jump, Elara. Be brave, be open, and listen with your heart. The story of Xylos needs you." With a soft, almost imperceptible shift, the platform beneath her feet began to move. The vibrant, swirling vortex enveloped her, the comforting hum of the Avum Nexus returning with renewed strength. This time, the journey felt different. It wasn't a journey to a place of knowledge, but entire story, a living, breathing narrative that needed her touch. The tunnel of light was no longer just a kaleidoscope of colors. It seemed to carry faint whispers, fragments of the Xylosian language, shimmering images of their bioluminescent forests. The chronogem throbbed, a warm beacon in her palm, guiding her, preparing her. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also an exhilarating sense of purpose. This wasn't just an adventure, it was a mission of profound importance. The descent onto Xylos was gentle, like slipping into a warm, inviting pool. The Avum Nexus platform materialized on a patch of soft, glowing moss beneath the colossal canopy of a great arbor. The air was thick with the scent of sweet sap and damp earth, cool and incredibly fresh. Overhead, the immense branches of the tree city glowed with an internal, soft light, painting the twilight world in shades of emerald, sapphire, and amethyst. Elara stepped off the platform, her boots sinking slightly into the springy moss. The Nexus platform, with a soft hum, shimmered and dissolved, leaving her alone in the alien, yet strangely welcoming, forest. The chronogem pulsed, its light now a steady directional beam, pointing deeper into the forest, towards what she instinctively knew was the echo stone. The forest floor was a tapestry of luminous fungi and gently swaying bioluminescent ferns. Strange melodic chimes echoed through the air, the natural symphony of the Xylosian ecosystem. She saw no immediate signs of the Xylosian people, but she felt their presence, a subtle energy. As she moved deeper, guided by the chronogem, the melodic chimes grew clearer, and she began to distinguish subtle shifts in the light patterns of the flora around her. Were these communications? She remembered the scribe mentioning their communication through light. She tried to slow her breathing, to open herself, to listen in a way she never had before. Suddenly, the chronogem throbbed violently, its light intensifying, casting long dancing shadows. Ahead, partially obscured by a curtain of glowing vines, was the monument she had seen in the projection. The Echo Stone. It was larger than she had imagined, a colossal monolith of dark polished stone, ancient and weathered. Intricate carvings, depicting swirling patterns and graceful figures, covered its surface, but unlike the vibrant images she had seen in the librarium, these were dull, almost inert. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the stone, like a dying heartbeat. Elara approached cautiously, her hand still clutching the chronogem. As she drew near, a faint, almost inaudible whisper seemed to emanate from the stone itself, a sound like dry leaves rustling across millennia. It was the fading story. She placed her free hand on the cool, smooth surface of the echo stone. The stone felt cold, dead. But as the chronogem, still clutched in her other hand, came closer, its light flared, and a faint warmth began to spread from her palm into the ancient monument. The whispers grew louder, though still indistinct, a cacophony of fragmented voices and images. Elara closed her eyes, trying to focus, trying to make sense of the jumble. She remembered the scribe's words, "Listen with your heart." She focused on the chronogem, on its steady, rhythmic pulse. She imagined it as a bridge, connecting her to the stone, to the fading narrative. She thought of all the ancient books she loved, the stories that had endured through time, the truths they held. She poured her own desire for understanding, her empathy for the lost story, into the connection. Slowly, gradually, the chaotic whispers began to coalesce. Images flickered behind her eyelids. The birth of Xylos, the first communion between the ancient beings and the great arbor. Moments of profound discovery, of shared joy, of quiet wisdom. It wasn't just information, it was emotion, pure and unfiltered. She felt the initial wonder of the Xylosians, as they discovered their symbiotic bond, the deep peace of collective consciousness, the solemn beauty of their first remembrance ceremony. But then the images blurred, the whispers fragmented again. There was a gap, a void. She sensed a period of great struggle, of hardship, of the Xylosians turning inward, their connection to the great arbor strained by a devastating celestial event. In their struggle for survival, the ceremony had indeed been forgotten. The thread had frayed. The chronogem pulsed urgently, urging her onward. It wasn't enough to just receive the fragments. She needed to establish the connection, to weave the thread back together. Elara knew what she had to do. She began to speak, not in Xylosian, for she didn't know the language, but in the language of universal truth and emotion. She spoke of remembrance, of the importance of stories, of the enduring power of connection. She spoke of the beauty she had witnessed in the fleeting images, of the spirit of Xylos that still resonated within the stone. As she spoke, the chronogem vibrated intensely, its light pouring into the echo stone. The dull carvings on the monolith began to glow faintly, then more brightly, echoing the colors of the Xylosian forest around them. The whispers solidified into a clear, harmonious voice, no longer fragmented, but a coherent narrative, flowing through Elara, through the chronogem, and into the heart of the echo stone. The story was of the first seed, planted eons ago by a cosmic wanderer, which grew into the great arbor. It told of the first breath, when the nascent Xylosian consciousness linked with the arbor's vast intelligence. It spoke of unity, of shared purpose, of the delicate balance between individual and collective. It was a story of hope, resilience, and interconnectedness. As the story flowed, the entire forest seemed to respond. The bioluminescent flora pulsed with renewed vigor, brighter, more vibrant. The melodic chimes intensified, weaving into a complex, joyous symphony. And then, from the shadows of the colossal trees, figures began to emerge. The Asian people, and death. They were slender, graceful, their obsidian skin shimmering, their eyes glowing with an internal light that now seemed brighter, more focused. They moved with a renewed sense of purpose, their gazes drawn to the glowing echo stone, to Alara standing before it, her hand still pressed against its surface, the chrono gem radiating its powerful light. They didn't approach immediately, but stood in a wide circle, their forms radiating a silent, profound understanding. Their eyes, filled with a gentle awe, seemed to acknowledge not just Alara, but the reawakened story itself. Alara felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, not just from the beings, but from the very air, from the great arbor itself. The echo stone was now fully illuminated, its carvings glowing with a soft, steady light, pulsing with the vibrant heartbeat of a re-remembered history. The narrative anomaly was mended. The thread was rewoven. Alara slowly withdrew her hand. The chronogem, its light now a soft, contented hum, felt lighter, its immediate purpose fulfilled. The Xylosians remained silent, observing her, their expressions unreadable, yet filled with a palpable sense of reverence. She felt a connection with them, a deep, silent understanding that transcended language. She had helped them remember who they were, and in doing so, had learned something profound about the enduring power of stories, about the fragility and resilience of memory. The Avum Nexus shimmered into existence beside her, its platform a welcoming beacon. It was time to leave Xylos, but not before a final, silent farewell. She met the gaze of one of the nearest Xylosians, a being whose eyes glowed with an ancient wisdom. She offered a small, heartfelt smile. The being responded with a subtle tilt of its head, a silent acknowledgement that spoke volumes. As she stepped back onto the Nexus platform, the Xylosians began to move, their forms flowing gracefully towards the revitalized echo stone, their voices, now clear and harmonious, joining in a soft, resonant chant. The story was not just remembered, it was being re-embraced, re-sung, relived. The Nexus platform ascended, gently lifting her from the forest floor. As it receded below, its bioluminescent cities and vibrant flora glowing like scattered jewels in the twilight, Alara clutched the chronogem. It was still warm, still pulsing, but with a new, stronger energy. She had completed one adventure, but the vast tapestry of the stars still stretched before her, an infinite expanse of threads waiting to be unraveled, each one a story, each void a mystery, and Alara, the girl who loved ancient books and whispered questions, was ready for the next one. The chronogem pulsed in Alara's palm, a heartbeat of concentrated time. Its light, a soft, swirling indigo, cast fleeting shadows across the console of her small personal shuttle, thy Star Whisperin'. She wasn't sure how she knew, but the gem, now fully awakened from its slumber on Xylos, seemed to hum a silent tune, a melody only she could hear, tugging her gaze towards a particular patch of sky. It wasn't a bright star, nor a swirling nebula, but a subtle, almost imperceptible shimmer in the cosmic dust lanes, an area often overlooked by conventional navigation charts. Yet, the chronogem thrummed with increasing insistence, resonating with something vast and ancient. Alara, ever the one to listen to whispered questions, engaged the My Star Whisperan's navigational systems, inputting the coordinates the gem seemed to project into her mind like a gentle thought. "Next adventure, little one?" she murmured to the gem, her fingers tracing the faint, intricate carvings on its surface. "Where are we off to now?" The journey was longer this time, a slow drift through stardust and quiet voids. Alara spent her time immersed in her collection of ancient data slates and forgotten star maps, searching for any mention of the shimmer, the anomaly, the destination that beckoned. She found whispers of a place called Athelgard, a world said to exist outside conventional space-time, a nexus of universal knowledge, guarded by beams of pure data. A place where stories weren't just told, but lived within the very fabric of the world. As Ei, Star Whisperer, finally approached Aethelgard, Elara gasped. It wasn't a planet of solid ground or liquid oceans. It was a colossal, crystalline sphere, shimmering with an inner light, suspended within a delicate network of energy filaments. These filaments pulsed with every color imaginable, shifting and flowing like rivers of pure thought. There were no visible cities, no signs of conventional life. Ethelgard was a living library, its very form a manifestation of accumulated knowledge. Carefully, Elara guided her shuttle through the shimmering veil that protected Ethelgard. As she passed through, the chronogem flared brightly, its indigo light momentarily engulfing the cockpit. When her vision cleared, she found herself not on a landing pad, but suspended in a vast, echoing chamber within the crystal sphere. The walls around her were not solid, but composed of countless, perfectly formed geometric shapes, each one glowing faintly, shifting with data streams that looked like intricate, living tapestries. From the glowing structures, ethereal forms began to coalesce. They were not solid beings, but shimmering motes of light and sound, coalescing into shapes that vaguely resembled ancient scholars, their forms constantly reforming, flowing like liquid starlight. These were the whispers of Ethelgard, the sentient data guardians. One of the whispers, larger and more radiant than the others, drifted close to my Star Whispering. Its voice, a symphony of chimes and 1,000 murmuring voices, resonated directly in Elara's mind. Welcome, Seeker. You bear a resonance of deep time. The chronogem, a key, not a treasure. Elara clutched the gem, feeling its warmth spread through her hand. I followed its call, she replied, her voice a little shaky in the overwhelming presence of the whispers. It led me here. What is this place? What does the gem do? The whispers pulsed with a collective understanding. Etelgard is the repository of all stories, all moments, all possibilities. The chronogem is a conduit. It does not merely measure time, it connects it. It links the threads of the great tapestry. Elara looked around, her eyes wide with wonder. The tapestry of stars, she whispered, remembering her own thoughts as Xylos receded. It's real. Indeed, but a single thread, however vibrant, is only part of the weave, the lead whisper continued. You have brought a thread of Aelos, of its vibrant life and ancient rhythms. Here on Ethelgard you must learn to connect it. Suddenly, the geometric walls around her began to rearrange themselves. Images flickered into existence, scenes from distant worlds, moments from forgotten histories, glimpses of futures yet unwritten. Elara saw the bioluminescent cities of Xylos, not as a memory, but as a living, breathing current flowing into the vast data stream of Ethelgard. Your love for ancient books, your whispered questions, these are the tools of connection, the whisper explained. To truly understand the chronogem, you must learn the language of the tapestry. You must ask the right questions, not of us, but of the universe itself, through the gem. For days that felt like moments and moments that felt like days, Elara remained in the heart of Ethelgard. She didn't leave her shuttle, but the chamber around her became her classroom. The whispers guided her, not with direct answers, but with prompts, with patterns, with the gentle nudge of interconnected data. She learned to focus the chronogem's energy, not to travel through time, but to perceive it differently. With the gem held aloft, she could see the echoes of past events shimmering in the crystalline walls, feel the faint vibrations of distant futures. She asked the gem questions, not aloud, but with her heart, with her curiosity. Show me the first bloom on Xylos. Show me the sound of a nebula being born. Show me a story of connection. Wow! And the gem responded. It didn't show her static images, but flowing narratives. She experienced the joy of a forgotten civilization discovering a new star, the quiet dignity of a celestial body completing its long, slow orbit, the intricate dance of atoms forming the very air she breathed. She saw how every event, every life, every whispered thought, was a thread. The chronogem was not just a key to understanding time, but a key to understanding everything that had ever been, was, or would be, through the lens of time. One evening, as Ethelgard's inner light pulsed with a gentle, calming rhythm, Elara held the chronogem, now glowing with a brilliant, steady indigo. She had learned. She had connected. She understood. The gem was not a magical artifact to grant wishes, nor a tool for personal gain. It was an instrument of empathy, a bridge between moments, between worlds, between stories. It allowed her to feel the pulse of the universe, to appreciate the unique story of every star, every planet, every living thing. You have woven your thread, the lead whisper resonated, its voice now softer, filled with a gentle pride. You have learned that the greatest treasure is not found but understood. The greatest journey is not to a destination, but into the heart of connection. Elara smiled, a profound sense of peace settling over her. She knew her adventure on Ethelgard was complete. She had come seeking answers, and she had found not just answers, but a deeper way to ask questions, a richer way to listen. With a final shimmering farewell from the whispers, the Star Whisperer gently exited Ethelgard, passing back through the shimmering veil. As Elara looked back, the crystalline sphere seemed to twinkle, a beacon of knowledge in the vast cosmic ocean. Back in the quiet solitude of her shuttle, Elara held the chronogem. It still pulsed, but now with a serene, knowing energy. It no longer pulled her towards a new destination, but rather hummed with the quiet confidence of a completed lesson. She knew it would guide her again when the time was right, but for now, its purpose was to help her feel the universe, to understand the magnificent, intricate tapestry she was a part of. She engaged the Star Whisperer's thrusters, pointing her ship towards home, but her gaze lingered on the stars. They were no longer just distant points of light, but countless stories, countless moments, all interconnected, all part of the same grand, beautiful weave. And Elara, the girl who loved ancient books and whispered questions, now understood that her greatest adventure wasn't about finding new places, but about connecting with all the wonderful stories the universe had to tell, one gentle, curious question at a time. One gentle, curious question at a time. With the chronogem warm in her hand, she knew she carried a piece of that infinite wonder, ready to dream of new threads to weave into the cosmic tapestry.